Hello everyone, welcome to my shop. In this video I'm going to be installing a set of rival 4x4 heavy duty tow hooks on my 6th gen Ford Ranger. My Ranger is an XLT, it does not have the FX4 package, but this process will be the same for all of the 6th gen, so 24 and up US and North America market Rangers. Even including the Raptor, there will be a few different brackets and stuff that we'll have to put on here, but I'm going to go ahead, get the truck in the air and move the camera, and we'll go ahead and get started. Included in the kit are the two new tow hooks, two heavy-duty mounting brackets, a couple of brackets to remount your intercooler, as well as two different sets of mounts, one for the Raptor and one for the standard Ranger to resecure your front skid plate, and then an entire package of hardware, all conveniently labeled, and also obviously some instructions. So real quick, just kind of do a quick comparison and kind of talk through maybe why you might want to go up to these rival 4x4 upgraded tow hooks. The factory tow hook, I mean, super beefy bar, pretty solid bracket. We're actually bolting the rival on with the same two bolts. But the factory tow hook is really meant more for pretty much a straight pull, so pulling up onto a wrecker or pulling maybe out of a ditch. But the moment you start putting some side load on this, I mean, as thick as this is, there is a risk that you do start maybe bending and kind of tweaking some of this hardware, especially, and that can become an even bigger problem because your intercooler is tied to it, skid plates are tied to it, a bunch of stuff is tied to it. So ideally, you wouldn't want to risk bending this. If you're not off-roading your truck or doing anything, I'm sure this is fine. Because I'm going to be off-roading my truck, I'm also towing my race car to tracks. Sometimes I'm parked in grass fields. There's a chance my truck is going to get stuck. So having this upgraded tow point, I mean, for one, this super thick, heavy-duty bracket, it's also boxed in the back, so much less likely to bend, especially if you end up pulling on it at an angle. The other kind of nice thing about this, the red's going to look cool and everything like that, but these actually have been tested and they are rated to 5,000 kilograms, which is about a little over 10,000 pounds. And these are certified for that. These were tested and proven. That's why they are stamped and that's why they're red. So again, very, very serious upgraded parts, very, very nice. Everything's nice, well done. The other nice little thing to note, the inside of this is rounded. This is not a sharp edge in here, so if you are going to be using soft shackles, which is definitely kind of the recommended way of attaching to a vehicle, there's no sharp edges in here that are going to cut a soft shackle or anything like that. I'm sure you can get a standard shackle and other things in here too, but that nice rounded edge is a good finishing touch. The first step in the install is going to be to remove the front skid plate or splash guard on these trucks. If you have a Raptor, obviously you've got a skid plate. FX4, you've got a skid plate. In my case, I have Rival's radiator skid plate up here. If you have none of those and you just have a standard base truck, this will just be plastic. There are 4 total bolts holding this on. There are 2 up here from the factory. They are 15 millimeter. If you've got the Rival skid plates on here at 17 millimeter, you need to remove the front 2, and you just need to loosen the rear 2 because the plate is slotted, including the factory plate. So you'll be able to lower it down and slide it out, and then we'll move on to the next step. With the skid plate removed, the next step is going to be to support your intercooler. The tow hook brackets are actually what is supporting your intercooler at this point. So you need to use a jack or something to hold this up. You do not want to put any upward pressure on this. You could risk bending your intercooler. So you just need to put something in under it so that it does not fall. The next step is going to be to actually remove the 2 tow hooks themselves. There's one on either side, obviously. There are 2 bolts that are holding the tow hook on, and then there's actually an additional screw, I'm trying to get it up in here, that is in the front side that is holding your, helping support your intercooler. This process would be easier if you were to go ahead and remove your front lip on the standard trucks. This obviously won't be a problem on the Raptors, and I'm not sure it's a problem on the FX4 trucks, but I'm going to go ahead and leave mine in place because this truck still sees a lot of street use and is supposed to help with cooling and fuel economy. One additional note for those of us without the Raptor, there is this little rubber guard or kind of valance piece. It's part of the front bumper. You can flex it out of the way and just use that to get to the front bolt. You'll also kind of flex it out of the way to get to the intercooler bolt. With the two main bolts out and the one small front bolt out, the next step is to go ahead and just kind of work the mount off of the intercooler. You just got to push up on the mount, and I've already pulled this off so it comes off pretty easy, and then you can just slide the tow hook out of the way. One thing to note, you will need to reuse the hardware for both the tow hook mount and the intercooler mount, so don't lose that hardware. One thing to do before we start installing the new tow hook, if you have the kind of standard front valence, not the Raptor, you're going to want to trim this piece of rubber out of the way just because of the way the new tow hook sits in here. This is flexible rubber. You can easily cut it with a utility knife, so however you want to create a straight edge and cut this off, you could even use scissors if you wanted to. I'm just going to use a clamp little bracket and cut it with a razor knife. So I'm going to go ahead and get that cleaned out of the way, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. Next up is some quick bench assembly work. There are the two major mounting brackets as well as the two brackets that will hold your intercooler. You should be looking down at the nut, the two kind of welded nuts here. Brackets are universal. These brackets are not universal. You will be using the two M6 bolts labeled A in your kit, as well as the two washers labeled D. I would highly recommend using some blue Loctite on these as well. And you will just simply be installing these into the bracket. Being careful to make sure you don't cross thread or anything. There may be some powder coat in these holes, so just kind of be careful as you're installing these. Once you have both side brackets assembled, the next step is going to be to go ahead and torque all four of these bolts. Torque spec is 9 Newton meters, which is about 80 inch-pounds. Next, with the pre-assembled brackets, you're going to go ahead and fish this back up into place. It'll be pretty obvious which one goes to which side, but we're going to fish that up in here. Make sure that you get back around the rubber grommet for the intercooler, and you're going to reuse the factory hardware to attach this back to the frame. With the main bracket in place, as I said, you've got the two factory bolts back in, plus the small little bolt screw piece here to hold the intercooler to the new bracket. Torque spec for these is going to be 77 Newton meters, which is about 57 foot-pounds for the two big bolts, and then the smaller bolt, theoretically you could do 9 Newton meters again, basically just a little overhand tight. Bear in mind it's going into plastic, or you're cinching plastic, so don't crank down on it. Next up is going to be actually mounting the actual skid plate to the bracket. You're going to be using the bolts marked C with the washers marked F, 4 of them total. I do recommend using blue Loctite on these. Also, just kind of a recommendation, these are actually marked with their working load limit, which is part of the reason why they are red. It is recommended that is mounted facing up. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this in and get the bolts started, and then we'll talk about tightening everything up. So a couple quick notes. If you have an M12 by 1.75 tap or thread clearing tool, it is a good idea to chase the threads in these. Some of these aren't quite as straight as they should be, so it did take me a couple of tries to get all 4 bolts snugged up, but I've got them all snugged up now, so I can go ahead and tighten them down. Torque spec for these is 77 Newton meters, which is again about 57 foot-pounds. The last step before I go over and repeat this process on the other side is to install the skid plate bracket. There are 2 brackets included with the kit. There's a short bracket, which is for the standard Ranger, tall bracket for the Ranger Raptor. This bracket should be installed so that the flat side is out and that it is angled up towards the front of the truck. There is some additional hardware included. It is bolt B, washer E, M8 bolts. Good idea to go ahead and chase these threads because of all the powder coating on this. M8 by 1.25. Gonna go ahead and get these bolts in here with some blue Loctite, and then we'll snug them up and we'll get them torqued. Last step on this bracket, torque the 2 M8 bolts. It is 24 Newton meters, which is about 18 foot-pounds. The last step is going to be to reinstall the factory or aftermarket skid plate. Again, 2 bolts back here are slotted. If you still have the air down like I do, you have to bring it up forward, slide it back, you can hang it on the 2 bolts. Again, blue Loctite recommended here. The last step after you get everything aligned, double check fitment and everything, is to torque the 4 skid plate bolts, 47 Newton meters, 35 foot-pounds. And that's it for the install. Overall, pretty easy. Biggest thing is I definitely had to chase some of the threads on some stuff. Some powder coat and other stuff got into some of the threads, so it just took a little bit of extra time to chase all the threads and everything. Do recommend blue Loctite. But again, overall, not too bad, pretty easy. Now this truck is even more prepared for whatever I'm going to do with it, whether I get stuck in a field at a track or whether I'm out in the woods somewhere and I need a tow. So again, pretty easy. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, check back in later. I'll be doing some more stuff on the truck soon.